We didn't want players who were new to the series, who wanted to experience the story, to have this really jarring jump in technology, to have to go from one console generation to another. We wanted two games that really felt like a continuous experience. I'm so excited for players who this will be their first experience of the game.
Welcome to The Last of Us Game Nights, a web series that explores the unforgettable characters, gripping story, and thrilling gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. I'm your host, James Deveney.
And I'm Anthony Deveney.
Joining us to talk new game modes and PS5 features is Naughty Dog game director Matthew Gallant. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
All right, let's dive in.
Don't slow down!
Because you're a game director at Naughty Dog, we get to look under the hood of this game, talk about some new features for the remaster, and basically the development of the game in general. Can you talk to us about your duties at Naughty Dog?
Yeah, I've been working at Naughty Dog for over a decade now. I started at Naughty Dog on the original game, The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3. I was very fortunate to get to step into the role of game director on The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. A game director is essentially the person overseeing the project and making sure that it's all moving forward smoothly.
Last of Us franchise has always been pushing the boundaries. What was the main motivation for the remaster?
We love these games, and we know there's always a really big audience for them. Not only players who might want to revisit them, but also players who've never played these games before. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on the PlayStation 5 is just the definitive way to play the game. We've been able to take advantage of the hardware and just max out all of our art settings, fidelity, and performance modes. We have the DualSense integration, which I can nerd out about all day. It's really exciting to have that, and enhances the immersion for players.
How's that feel?
Refreshing.
You know, we really love these games. We think they're evergreen. There's always new players discovering these games. When they come here, we want them to just give them a version of the game that just feels absolutely fresh.
You good? Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the game is when you're with Dina and Ellie and you enter this open world in Seattle. It's so detailed. Can you talk about how the remaster just made that such a better experience?
Yeah, so that's a section that we were really pushing the hardware on. It's this big open world. There's lots of foliage. With the additional power on the PlayStation 5, we get to do things like bump up the sun shadow quality. We can say that the distance at which objects get into greater detail as you approach them, everything's higher resolution. The world just has a lot more detail. The other thing that you'll get is the DualSense haptics. There's a moment that I really love in the opening of the game where Joel is polishing a guitar that he's going to give to Ellie.
I'm supposed to take her to the fireflies and walk away.
And each little moment on that, when he's polishing it, you can get this little haptic.
You go halfway across the country or something.
Those little subtle moments. Riding a horse, petting a dog, feeling the rain. It's really immersive to be able to play the game and get all those little details, all those little moments. And the DualSense haptics are just another way we get to do that.
You're affecting another sense of the player, so that's great for immersion.
Let's get off the roof before someone sees us.
It goes into accessibility, which Naughty Dog, your industry leaders in accessibility features. Last of Us Part 2 already had plenty, but what's been added with the remaster?
So we have a ton of accessibility features in The Last of Us. We have a lock-on aim option, which is really great if for players who just aren't used to aiming and shooting with a controller. It makes the game much friendlier, more approachable. If you're not someone who's used to playing with dual sticks and having one stick controlling the character, one stick controlling the camera, we have kind of a one-stick option mode where the camera is going to automatically rotate to face where you're moving. So for players who are maybe less used to standard action game controls, that's a lot friendlier way to get into it. We have some options for navigation assistance. So if you're lost, you can turn on an option that lets you press a button and directs you along the golden path of progression. The game is actually there supporting where you are. This is a game you can play at any skill level.
How about we get into some new things from The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, like Lost Levels? I'm so curious to get into Lost Levels. What exactly is it?
The Lost Levels are levels that we had in development, some ideas. So we were exploring some beats that we thought were going to be in the story. We have taken those levels and kind of given them dusted them off a little bit because they were cut a long time ago, and made them playable again in that in development state.
So it's like you're behind the scenes of a movie that you love, but you get to see what didn't make it into the cut.
And the trail of blood seems to lead into this convenience store. I think I might hand off the controller here so you can discover what's inside.
Let's see. There's been a lot of blood.
You got a rifle?
I'll be okay. Shit, water. Oh, I gotta take the sucker out. Okay, you got this. Oh, man.
Now, on top of the lost levels, I'm also ecstatic about No Return. Can you explain to us what is No Return?
No Return is a brand new roguelike survival mode where players will be thrown into randomized encounters drawn from the main story, but we've randomized enemy factions, we've randomized maps.
And we can play as other characters.
Yeah, each of them are playable. They have their own unique traits and identities that'll influence how you play them.
I'm excited to experience maps that we relate to with community and warmth, like somewhere like Jackson just turning into an absolute war zone.
We get to do whatever we want in terms of making fun, surprising combat situations.
And another addition we've noticed for the remaster of Part 2 is speedrunning. Can you explain that?
Run, Dina! Ellie! Right here! Don't slow down!
There is a really amazing community of people who speedrun. And we worked with them to develop this speedrun mode where basically what it does is it has an on-screen timer. It's going to tell you as you're playing through the game, how fast are you doing this chapter.
And you can do permadeath for either the whole game or per chapter or per act.
Yeah, permadeath, where basically if you opt into it, we will delete your save file when you die.
Oh my gosh.
It really does add that sense of stakes, that sense of tension into the game.
When you die, you really die.
This has been a long-term vision that we've had. We didn't want players who are new to the series, who wanted to experience the story, to have this really jarring jump in technology, to have to go from one console generation to another. We wanted two games that really felt like a continuous experience, that you could hand this to someone who was interested in The Last of Us and wanted to understand, what players loved about these stories and these characters and these adventures, and have two games that, are companion pieces. You can play them side by side, and they'll have this beautiful art style, art direction, and you can play them back to back. It's going to be a really great way to experience the series.
And that ends this episode of The Last of Us Game Nights. Matthew, thanks for joining. It was so great to get your perspective, look under the hood of this game.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, everyone.
PlayStation